Great to be joined in December by Fraser Ellis, the independent member for Narungga. Fraser, how's it going for you in the electorate at the moment?
I think it's going quite well, Ricky. Thank you for having me. It's looking like being a bumper harvest, notwithstanding a bit of November rain, and I'm sure the benefits of that will flow right through the community in the new year.
Yeah, there's a huge amount going through into the ports and into the storages. We spoke with Viterra late last week. An incredible season and something to be pretty thankful for. It's always, people are nervous about over-egging it until it's all safely in the bins and in the silos, but it does look like a very good year on the Yorke Peninsula.
Yeah, well, here's hoping, mate. We don't want to jinx it now and a bit of rain come through or anything like that, but it looks like being a good one. I'm sure when they do get to finishing, they'll be relieved that it's in the bin.
Now, just we're near the end of 2022, Fraser. During this year, you were re-elected in March as an independent. Just give us a bit of a summary of how you've seen the year as it's progressed.
Well, it's been an extraordinary year with 3 elections and 2 changes of government. So it's been a fascinating year and a lot of change in the way that we try and advocate and get things done for the community, but we're still working constructively with the government and trying to ensure that we get our fair share of the pie spent in Narungga and we can fix some of the shortcomings that we've got here in the community.
And as we do broadcast over multiple states, it didn't escape our notice that there's a strong vote outside the major parties for independence, even in the Victorian state election just gone. A record low number of votes for the majors. You'd be heartened, I imagine, by the increased support in the community for independence.
Well, interesting you bring up the Victorian election because the National Party took 3 seats off of regional independence. So I think it goes to show that it's all about how effective you are in representing the community and less about what colour shirt you're wearing and more about what you're getting done. So,
yep, a fair point, and I think we've talked in that state a lot about the lockdowns and the fact that things went a little differently in Victoria than they did, say, in South Australia. Speaking of, I guess, the health reasons that some of those lockdowns were imposed, you're trying to get better health coverage, not just in your electorate, but for regional South Australia. Tell us a bit about this petition.
So I've been diligently passing on the concerns of our community in my time as a local member, and it just feels increasingly, and irrespective of which party's in government, that we're not quite getting the attention that we ought to get on the YP and in Narungga. And I'm sick of passing on those concerns and not having any action taken. So we've launched a petition with the goal of getting 10,000 signatures for 2 reasons. The first being that it will be a wonderful demonstration of the desire for improvements from the community and a real show of the numbers behind the push. And the second reason is that 10,000 signatures triggers a legislative requirement for an inquiry. So we'll be able to get the people with the power to make decisions on the stand, essentially, and be able to ask some questions on the record and hear why nothing ever seems to change.
I'm sure you'll tell us shortly how people can get their hands on the petition, but what does it actually read in terms of what you're asking the government or what you're complaining in the petition needs to happen?
Well, it's got 5 parts, and all the information's on the website, but some of the important parts is that it calls for the equal distribution of general practitioners across South Australia so that we don't have an oversupply in some parts of the state and a shortage in others. And it calls for a reimagining of the local health network boundaries so that there's a bit more of an equal sharing of hospital and constituent numbers amongst the 6 local health networks rather than some having lots and others not having that many. It calls for a few more things like that.
So with the local health networks point you just raised there, I believe, how many are there covering country areas? There's multiple in the city. How many are there in total?
Well, I believe there's 6. I haven't got it quite in front of me, but I think there's 6. And the Yorke and Northern one, which we are in, has easily the most hospitals and has the second most number of people. So the board that's in charge of the Yorke and Northern Local Health Network has got a formidable task ahead of them. And if we reimagine those boundaries so that it was a bit more evenly shared, then it might be an easier and more achievable task for that board to govern our local region.
And it's not a petition limited to just people living in your electorate either. Anyone can sign this one?
If you're a resident of South Australia, you can sign the petition. So anywhere across the state, it would be much appreciated if you can sign. And when the time comes and we do get to that 10,000 mark, the inquiry will be open, and I'm sure there'll be opportunity from people from all over South Australia to put their 2 cents worth into the inquiry and make sure their voice is heard.
Now, Fraser, your website address, if people want to check that out and even print one off to gather some signatures?
Well, my website address fraserellis.com.au, one word, and it should have a link there with all the information handy, and where you can print out some pages and print out the information sheet I've drafted to go along with it that explains all the clauses, and hopefully get some signatures and send them back in. We're well over halfway. We cleared 5,000, and there's sheets all over the peninsula, and we're making an effort to get them into caravan parks and other tourism ventures around the place, so that when the tourists come, that use and rely on the health system the same as we do, that they can lend their support to the campaign as well.
Now, just on this one, we did share the audio from the last sitting week of Federal Parliament of the federal member Rowan Ramsey describing in the Northern Eyre Peninsula, on the next peninsula across, it was a train wreck, this situation with the lack of GPs in the area. So we're not just between the two of us talking about a serious problem here. It's been widely acknowledged almost across most sides of politics that the shortage of GPs in regional areas is a very serious problem.
But no one seems to be doing anything about it, Ricky, and that's the frustrating part. Like, we've seen like we've been acknowledging the falling number of general practitioners that are emerging from universities, and the shortage of them in country South Australia for quite some time, and nothing's been done to take proactive steps to remedy the problem. So that's the frustrating part for us, is that everyone's seen this coming, and there's very little being done in the way to fix it. So
yeah, and I gather the short-term fix has always been, well, let's bring some doctors in from overseas, which theoretically, with borders reopening and maybe people can come across, but labour force is pretty in demand. It's going to be hard to even source overseas doctors at the moment.
Yeah, and I wonder whether there are some ethical questions about bringing doctors from other countries that might well need them more than we do anyhow. But in any case, it's not a sustainable model to have international medical graduates staffing all hospitals in regional South Australia. We need to figure out a way to ensure there's a greater throughput of people choosing to study to become general practitioners, and of that greater percentage of people choosing to study that we get a significant percentage of them out here in regional South Australia. So
sounds like good fodder for an inquiry in the state parliament, Fraser. Hopefully the petition gets some more signatures and we get all of that aired. Thanks very much for joining us today and across the year here on Flow. Fraser Ellis, member for Narungga.
Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate it, mate.